Welcome to our presentation on paragraphing, the T method. So T stands for topic sentence, evidence sentence, and explanation sentence. Now, I just want to point out that this is just one way of looking at paragraphing. Different teachers have different approaches. So, for example, some people call this the C method, where topic becomes subject, or the P method, where this becomes the point. And so this is just one way of looking at it. The key thing to remember is that the heart of a paragraph is these three sentence types. Let's take a look at an example from J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter series. J.K. Rowling uses dialogue to create engaging descriptions of major characters. For example, when Hagrid talks about Voldemort, he says, "Don't know if he had enough human left in him to die." Page 46. Hagrid's words paint a dark image of Voldemort and leave the reader wanting to learn more about the antagonist. So that's an example of the three sentence types, the T sentences. And so here they are highlighted for you. So we've got our topic sentence, we've got our evidence sentence, and then we've got our explanation sentence. Let's take a look at topic sentences in more detail. Now, I think these are the most important sentence because they show your analytical thinking, they show your knowledge and understanding of the question, as well as how the text works, the text that you're studying, how that functions. Let's take a look at some examples. Now, it's important to remember that a good topic sentence has two parts to it. It has the topic and it has a controlling idea. So here's an example. Rotten Tomatoes' use of statistics demonstrates to readers the popularity of the film. So we've got statistics as the topic, and then we've got the so what, or why is the statistics point that you're identifying important? Why should I care about it? And well, it demonstrates to readers the popularity of the film. So that's the controlling idea. Here's another example. Rotten Tomatoes' use of images from the film captures the audience's attention. So images from the film is the topic, and I need to show why I'm pointing this out for my essay. And this is why it captures the audience's attention. So I've got those two parts here. Here's a more literary example. Atwood uses repetition to show the relationship between language and power. So we've got repetition, and what's the repetition doing? It's showing the relationship between language and power. And so as a reader and an examiner, I'm going to then expect this paragraph to focus on repetition, and I expect the paragraph to prove the controlling idea that repetition shows the relationship between language and power as it is here. Here's a little table to help you out in constructing your own strong topic sentences. And it's just a template. It's not meant to be the only way to write topic sentences, but it's a nice way to get you started. We've got the role of the writer. And so I always like to make the writer active in the sentence. Or if the sentence is about the reader, make the reader active so that you've got an active subject for the topic sentence. Then we've got our language device or stylistic technique, or whatever it is that you want to focus on your topic for the paragraph. Then we move to the controlling idea section. Verb to show effect or function. This is really important. If you can choose a very accurate verb, then that's a great way to elevate your writing because it shows your command of the English language, and it also shows your understanding of the text that you're analyzing. And then finally, we've got the function or the effect or the theme, the mood, the message, whatever it is you want to say about the topic. So here's an example. The writer's use of symbolism, let's go down, emphasizes the theme of ambition. And so that could be a topic sentence for a number of literary works. So that's how you can use this table to help nudge you in the right direction for writing strong topic sentences. Let's move on to the next sentence type, which is evidence sentences. Now, evidence sentences, they show how you understand the text. And they show your clear understanding of the text because you can use examples from the text and evidence from the text in a clear way to then justify your analysis. And you should have more than one evidence sentence in each of your paragraphs at a grade 9, 10, 11 and 12 level. Let's take a look at some examples. Now, evidence for English essays are usually either quotes or paraphrased sections. So let's take a look at each one of those. Let's have an imaginary essay question. What is the relationship between language and power? All right. So let's imagine we've done our topic sentence already, and now we need a quote to support our topic sentence and to prove our point. In the poem Spelling, Atwood writes, "A word after a word after a word is power." So that's where I'm now quoting directly from Atwood's poem Spelling. And I've got a few key things to point out here. I've noted where the quote comes from. In this case, it's the poem Spelling. And you'll note here that I've decided to underline the title of the poem. It's usually the case that when you're typing in a Word document or something, that titles are italicized. Although I've chosen to underline because students often have to handwrite exam essays, and it's usually better to underline titles in a handwritten essay because it's more clear to the examiner that an underlined word is a title. So that's just pointing out there that I underline even when in writing, just to get into the habit so that when students are in exams, they can just underline. They don't have to think about a different rule. So, and I've put in the author here, and I'm introducing the quote. So I've got comma, I've got inverted comma, I've got the quote, I have closing punctuation, in this case a full stop, and then an inverted comma to close off the quote. So that's using a quote. The next type is using a paraphrase. You can paraphrase. Here's an example of a paraphrase. So it's exactly the same thing as the quote, but now I've paraphrased it instead. So here we go. Atwood writes in Spelling that words strung together become power. So you can see I've paraphrased and kept the meaning, or at least what I interpret the meaning to be, from this quote into a paraphrase. Now, it's usually better in English essays to quote as much as you can rather than paraphrase, but it's fine to paraphrase some of the time. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Let's look at the explanation sentences. Now, these are important because they connect the evidence you've selected to the topic sentence and the essay question. So remember, the topic sentence tells me what this paragraph's about and why it's important. Your quote is the evidence, but then you need to prove your point and explain why this evidence proves your point in the topic sentence and why the topic sentence is accurate. You can also interpret the evidence for the reader. In other words, what does the evidence mean? And you should have more than one explanation sentence, especially in grade 9, 10, 11, 12. You're probably going to have 2 or even 3 quotes in your paragraphs, and so you're going to have more explanation sentences as well. Let's take a look at some examples. So here's our same example essay question. What is the relationship between language and power? Now here's an explanation sentence, and it's an interpretation type. And we're going to stick with Atwood's quote, a word followed by a word. A word after a word after a word is power. So we're going to stick with that quote. Here's the interpretation. Atwood means that those people who use language successfully will gain power. So there's my interpretation of that quote. And you can see it's still relevant to the essay question. But I could not do a better job of linking it to the essay question and explaining why this is evidence for my point. Atwood's repetition of a word reinforces the role of language as an essential part of how power is won and maintained. So there's my link to the essay question. All right, let's put it all together. Here's our example essay question. So I'm just keeping it the same. What is the relationship between language and power? Here are the sentences put together. So I've taken my topic sentence. Atwood uses repetition to show the relationship between language and power. In the poem Spelling, Atwood writes, a word after a word after a word is power. Atwood means that those people who use language successfully will gain power. Atwood's repetition of a word reinforces the role of language as an essential part of how power is won and maintained. Here it is annotated. So we've got our topic sentence. I've got my evidence sentence. I've got my explanation, the interpretation style sentence here. And then I finally have my link to the question, this type of explanation. And that closes out my paragraph. So this is a nice tight paragraph. All right, that's it. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. All right, thanks very much, everyone. Bye.